Hi friends, so as you'd expect, Donald Trump has said that he did not mean what he said the other day in the debate, that he did not mean that he supported the Proud Boys and asked them to stand by, and basically that was a call to stand by and go down to the election polls on election day and intimidate voters. That's what that really was about. It was a fascist call to his supporters. I'll just speak a little closer to this microphone because it's starting to get windy. So Donald Trump said that he did not mean that, and today he released an audio from his campaign site where it said that he did not support white supremacists, he did not support the Proud Boys, and there was something else. It was basically that he did not support white supremacy or the Proud Boys. That's what he said. So there's two things about this, and one person on the video thread of this audio that he released on his YouTube channel, Donald Trump's YouTube channel, a supporter said it's about the optics, and I often think that too, when he will say something and then either pretend he didn't say it, or he will say that's not what he meant, which is what he's done in this case. The motive is to give an outright direction to the Proud Boys, and then to either retract it or say that's not what he meant. He said, I didn't mean that, I meant stand back and let law enforcement do what they need to do. That's not what he meant. He was outright giving an instruction to the Proud Boys, which is a white supremacist hate group that is misogynist, that it's very violent. He was actually giving them an instruction on what he would like them to do on the election day. So now he's pretending like he didn't do that. And that's just really about the optics. And I think the Proud Boys would know that. They know that the President of the United States can't be that overt at this point. So that he might have put that instruction out, then he will retract it, but that doesn't mean that he's actually retracting it. There are some people who actually have a problem with the fact that he said that. There's all these people on his YouTube channel getting upset with him for saying they don't support the Proud Boys. And here's something I want to say directly to those people, and directly actually to people who support the Proud Boys and who are even Proud Boys. It's about time that you weren't so cowardly that you're not able to just say, look, I hate black people, I hate LGBT people, I hate minority groups in general, I hate leftists. Instead of using a non-existent group like Antifa. Antifa is not an organization. It doesn't have a membership card like the Proud Boys does. It doesn't have, brotherly groups that get together like the Proud Boys do. It is not an organization. It is an ideology. Just as Joe Biden said, sometimes even a broken clock is right twice a day. Joe Biden said that Antifa is an idea. It's not an organization. Even the FBI has said Antifa is not a domestic threat. And why is that? Because it's not an organization. It's just people who are anti-fascist. And what is to be afraid of about people that are anti-fascist? Seriously. That's the thing. If people don't understand what's the problem with being against people that are anti-fascist, then I don't know what to tell you. So if the FBI says that the white supremacist hate groups like the Proud Boys, and there's about 490 different hate groups in the United States, if the white supremacist hate groups are the greatest domestic threat, that's their own words. It's Trump's FBI is saying that. And the FBI prior to that, I'd say, was keeping an eye on white supremacist groups and could see them as a domestic threat. If they believe that it's a domestic threat, why can't, and this is Trump's FBI, why can't Trump supporters actually accept that? Why can't Trump supporters actually accept that Antifa is not an organization, that it's an ideology? And that really what these supporters of the Proud Boys and the Proud Boys should just stop being cowards and stop pretending like they're fighting Antifa, a non-existent organization, right? And say what they really are against. And what they're really against is leftists, black people, LGBT people, anybody who's anything that is about diversity, anything that is about minority groups, anything that is about multiculturalism, they're against that. Instead of using this non-existent group, Antifa, just be honest enough to say what you're really, really against, what you really, really hate, instead of being the cowards that you are, particularly the little incel cowards that get on these different threads and say all these edgelord things. You're just little cowards. Go back to your basement and find some sort of meaning to your life. Anyway, I want to share something that Jordan Chariton said about the debate the other day with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And he seems to think that Joe Biden is going to win now because of that disastrous debate with Trump. He said that Trump has alienated the percentage of voters that he needs now to get across the line. His base basically, and I've said this too, his base wouldn't matter if Donald Trump had, shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, as he said in his speech. He said, I think I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and I wouldn't get in trouble for it. Well, I believe that, and I think that his base would not abandon him no matter what he said, no matter what he did. So let's just put them to side for 1 minute. Then there's the people who switched over to the Trump camp to support Trump when 8 years of Obama did nothing for them. And Obama just was the neoliberal that he always was and just pretended to be hopey-changey, and he did nothing. So there was a bunch of voters that went across to Trump. Now, he thinks, Jordan Sheridan from the leftist journalist group Status Quo, said that he thinks that that Trump has alienated those supporters with the unhinged debate that how he presented himself at the debate. And that's possible, but I tend to live now in a sort of a hopeless kind of a state where it seems like everything that can go wrong will go wrong. That it's almost like we've stepped into this universe where the worst thing that can happen happens. For example, when I was waiting for the general election results from Australia, and it seemed like all the polls were saying that not that I'm a Labor Party supporter because I think they're awful, but it was looking like the Labor Party in Australia was going to win, and win fairly well. And it turned out that it was actually the coalition, the right-wing authoritarian wannabe coalition led by Scott Morrison who won. So, and even the exit polls suggested that the Labor Party was going to win. Now, we have paper ballot voting here, so I don't know if it's possible to actually steal an election. That remains to be seen in the future if something comes forward, but so far it hasn't. So, something that I thought, I hate the Labor Party as much as I hate the coalition at this point, the way they behave. They're just neoliberals that pretend to be for diversity, which is what the Democratic Party in the US do. They're not as bad as the Democratic Party, but they're going in that direction. So now that I've seen how things can go so pear-shaped with the polls, and exit polls included, just generally polling, I just don't expect that Joe Biden will win. Not that I care either way. I think they're both awful. It's just that one is overtly fascist now, absolutely calling for Proud Boys to help him out, help him out and possibly beyond that. So he's an overt fascist, and as Jordan Sheridan pointed out in this little speech I'm going to play for you at the end of this, he pointed out, that Joe Biden is like a corporate fascist, really, but Donald Trump is an overt fascist, and they're both awful. And like I've said many times on this channel, the Democratic Party and the GOP are just one big party, and the Democratic Party is the right, and the GOP is the far right. And the US has had the 14 points of fascism for a while, the 14 defining characteristics of fascism. Just check out what they are. But one of these candidates is more overt and could probably swing the whole nation full on into fascism. And if he has the support of the generals, which at this point I don't think he does, but who knows, the generals might think, oh well, if Trump takes us into, if he decides to stay in despite the election results and he gets his Proud Boys to go down and intimidate, we could just do a military coup and take over and basically throw Trump out, and we can say we're going to wait until there's a stable government. That's what my partner was suggesting, that the generals could just decide, well, fuck Trump, and we'll just have a military coup, and we'll then decide, when it's stable enough to have elections. I mean, it could go that way too. Why not? Who's stopping who, really? There's a lot of things that, nobody holds anybody to account anymore. There's hardly any sort of repercussions about anything. So what's stopping anybody from doing whatever the hell they want, really? The only thing that could stop them stop Trump from just deciding he's going to stay in, as if the generals that he keeps talking about and whom he loves so much decide, no, that's not acceptable. We'd rather have this other corporate neoliberal in office because he's going to be much easier to control and do all the right things for the military-industrial complex. He's not impulsive, and he's not crass like Donald Trump. I mean, really, I think it's just a matter of optics in that regard, because they're both Republicans, really, and they're both doing the bidding of the U.S. national security state, military-industrial complex, CIA, etc. They're just doing all of that. So it's really a matter of who they choose, who they want to help keep in, who they are okay with, really, in the end. It's not really what the voters want. I mean, in the end, if they don't want somebody, there's ways and means of getting them out. Either they don't have to directly assassinate like they did with John F. Kennedy. They'll just do other things. They do other things to get them out. Like Chuck Schumer said, there's 7 ways till Sunday, I think he said, of the CIA messing with Donald Trump, since Donald Trump wasn't very friendly towards them in the beginning. So anyway, I'm going to play what Jordan Chariton said. He made it clear that he's not promoting Joe Biden. He's not supporting Joe Biden. He thinks he's awful, but he sees a big difference in that one is a corporate fascist and the other one is an outright fascist, and that's very concerning. I just thought I'd play you that because it's a good little spiel. But as I said, I wish that these bigots and fascists would just stop pretending that Antifa is some sort of threat and using that as a very thinly veiled screen for their bigotry, their hatred of the left, and their hatred of a political position, that they want to wipe these people out, basically. And that's not too far gone to say that, because somebody infiltrated the Patriot Coalition in Portland, in Oregon, and they had private conversations there that this particular infiltrator was privy to, and they were actually talking about gunning down leftists and basically, doing mass shootings of leftists. That's what they'd like to do. And instead they were talking about, well, let's do paintballs instead. This is what they decided. And people were in this group were kind of a bit sort of disgusted at that thought, but they sort of thought that was a good idea at the present time. But I'd say that if it flicks over into full-on fascism with Trump, next year there might be full-on just gunning people down in a mass way, and I don't know if there'll be much pushback with that, truly. I mean, you've even got right now laws that allow for protesters to be driven down, to be run down by cars, and that's okay. I've talked about that in my last video. They've decriminalized in some ways the running down of protesters. So that's sort of the direction they're heading. So anyway, that's what this Patriot Coalition wanted to do. They want to gun down people en masse, leftists. They're tired of mucking about, and that's what their private conversations are in relation to this. So, that could be unleashed, and in the coming months, and after Trump gets elected, if that's what happens. But I would just like these people to just be, instead of using this fictitious Antifa, this non-existent organization, as an excuse. Like one of those Proud Boys said, I joined Proud Boys because I wanted to beat up communists. You'd be hard-pressed to actually find a communist at those Black Lives Matter protests. There might be some socialists there might be some socialist-leaning people there, but communists, no. And it's a very broad coalition of a lot of different people. And there's a lot of different issues that are in those Black Lives Matter protests. I would just like these bigots to be honest and just say what they mean. I get tired of this pretense, like with the marriage equality here in Australia, how it was all about the definition of marriage. BS. It was just because there was a whole bunch of homophobes who didn't like the idea that LGBT people got any sort of equality. That's what it was about. It wasn't about the definition of marriage equality. What a load of nonsense. And it seems like these cowardly people, these cowardly bigots, always have to hide behind something. And it's about time they just said what they meant. I'd have a lot more respect for that.
To me, this is the problem with the progressive movement, and this is the problem with particularly the online left. If you don't breathe, if your fire doesn't breathe as fiery out of your mouth as theirs, sell out. If you don't share their opinion 100% of the time, sell out. Look in the dictionary for the word nuance, whoever just said that.
That was me.
If you think that I and Status Quo are sellouts for literally calling out blinking red light white supremacy, if you think that we are sellouts for calling out a president who is openly telling armed supporters to go monitor polling stations, not only are you a sellout to actual progressive beliefs, but you're an idiot, and I don't care if you watch. Maybe that's not so PC of me to say, because obviously viewers could have different opinions, but if you are so small-minded and so politically naive to believe that you're selling out by calling out white supremacy, then everyone should be sellouts. And as a Jew, I really wish there were more Americans in the 1930s and 40s that were sellouts. that spoke up and demanded that we step in to the horrors of Adolf Hitler. I don't think Trump's quite there yet, but what I do think is the shit that we saw coming out of his mouth last night is not even a wink and a nod. It's a direct message to deranged white supremacists to be violent if necessary to keep him in power. And if that's okay with you as a progressive, or you claim to be a progressive, if me saying no, Trump and Biden last night in particular are not equal, that is not equal, and Biden is a corporate warmonger, no mistaking it. Unlike the Young Turks, I don't ignore that. I'm still going to cover Biden critically. I'm not taking the next month and a half off from exposing Joe Biden's corruption, lack of policy, lack of actual populist progressivism for the crisis we're in. No. Joe Biden is a corrupt Republican. This is not supporting Joe Biden or selling out. Selling out is literally, in my opinion, being like other independent outlets who basically send out fundraising emails trying to get you to vote for Joe Biden. I've seen that from the Young Turks. Selling out is literally just tuning out any bad news of Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, is essentially being a cooler MSNBC or an arm, a coked out version of MSNBC. I ain't selling out, but I'm not going to, I can't just close my eyes and bury my head in the sand at what I saw last night. So if you think that's a sellout, you're a fucking idiot. And you should, if that is selling out to you, then go watch whatever channel equates Trump and Biden as the same. It's not the same. And by the way, if you think for a second that when Joe Biden becomes president, if he becomes president, like, I'm going to be doing jumping jacks, hell no. I mean, my fiance and I have talked about this. I've told her straight up, yeah, no, I don't see it exactly the same way as you, because I know we already live in a fascist country, and Joe Biden is part of that. But there's different degrees. There's corporate fascism, and then there's straight up, this train has left the gas station here, or this train has left the station, authoritarian dictator fascism. And that's what we saw last night. And I got news for you, folks. I got news for you. Jen would know a little bit more about this than I, because she studies psychology. I don't think Trump is just a sociopath. I think he's a full-fledged psychopath. I think he has massive delusions of grandeur. I think he might borderline have different personalities. And I think if given 4 more years, do you think a 6-3 Supreme Court? You think Trump's joking about more than 2 terms? Do you think he's joking?